This program deals with devil worship and satanic beliefs. It contains explicit scenes and descriptions of violent crimes and rituals.
Americans are asking, who attacked our country?
You have declared a subliminal jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
Everything pertaining to what's happening has never come to the surface. The world will never know the true facts of what occurred, my motives.
And night fell on a different world.
And Iblis is thinking, I should be getting this position, not Adam, and this guy is created from dirt.
And how does the army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
And the conspiracy theorists can say what they will, but
I want you to give me power over Adam, and I want you to give me soldiers and minions and all of these things.
The people had so much to gain and had such an interior motive for putting me in a position I'm in. We'll never let the true facts come about more to the world.
And I want you to be able to give me the ability to whisper into the hearts of mankind.
And who was the grotto leader? Don't remember his name. You don't remember the name of a person who involved you in murder?
Now these people are in very high positions, yeah? Yes.
Welcome back to Subliminal Jihad, episode 58. I'm your co-host, Dimitri.
I'm Khalid.
And today, we have a very special treat. We're breaking through the barriers in the podcast verse, and we got a guest. We got a guest on the pod for the first time. First guest.
Months of talking about it, possibly.
One of the OG acolytes from the Grotto of Truth.
Yeah, one of the OG acolytes. Yes, very active Grotto participant. Feels right to have this guest, which is Jimmy Falungong. And I have
Jimmy
to say,
Falungong.
Only after saying his name out loud am I realizing it's one of those Twitter portmanteau jokes on Jimmy Fallon. I was just all right, word. I'd never really examined it before, but yeah.
It is a good one.
Yeah.
It is a good one. It's very evocative. So, how you doing, Jimmy?
I'm doing great. I feel a little bit like this is a Make-A-Wish Foundation wish. Did someone forget to tell me I have cancer? Because I'm I get to be on my favorite podcast.
Wow.
Well, maybe we'll have you back when we do an episode about how sus the Make-A-Wish Foundation is, and the connections to the Miami Mafia. Anyways,
that would be a very funny Make-A-Wish situation, especially. Anyway, whatever. We need to we're trying to be respectful of Jimmy's time here, and not just spiral off into nonsense. So, yeah.
Sure. So today, Jimmy, you've been dropping some prolific threads lately on Twitter, and I think from this podcast that we love a good Marxist Twitter thread, a deep dive that really, honestly, I think. Talked about, accounts like Crypto Cuttlefish before, who I think was a true artist of the medium. And I love it when anybody takes up that tradition of really deep dive threads. And you did one recently about Jeffrey Epstein.
Man, even just being mentioned in the same name as Crypto Cuttlefish, good lord.
Yeah, it's if you go to his Twitter, if you go to @FallonJimmy, or look up his display name, I think it's the pinned tweet. Still, you can find this thread.
Yes.
Yeah, which actually it is it is a very interesting thread, and you were recently on the Offerman report to talk about it in a little bit more detail, and it is a very interesting angle on the whole Epstein thing. Maybe Jimmy, you could give us how you would summarize it. But to me, it's kind of about bringing in the idea of child development, gifted children almost, and with Epstein's interest, obviously, in being a pedo, and also in cryonics and transhumanism and new advances in artificial intelligence and all of that stuff.
Eugenics.
Yeah, so if I had to summarize it in one word, it's basically hey, Epstein might have been experimented on as a kid because there's a bunch of people with his same background and same place who were experimented on as kids who went on to do wild parapolitical stuff. And basically
absolutely.
The thread is like not really like I don't have proof that Epstein was experimented on, but like I'm just laying these two lives side by side and being like, hey man, what's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because like in a lot of, like, you know, Epstein, like what happened with Epstein, like, you know, his death under those mysterious circumstances and like you know, his enmeshment with all these political figures, that really catapulted a lot of like conspiracy discourse and even interest in like the occult into the mainstream for a while and created like a lot of more interest in it. But that's something that has always been like hard for me to like get you know, to really square the circle of like with some of the stuff, because it's like, yeah, these people are like into black magic, you know, they want to like, you know, ascend and become gods or whatever, and also like they're like pedophiles, you know, and like you always want to like, what is the ritual purpose of like being a pedophile? Like, where does this factor in? Like, you know, what's the intelligence advantage or the occult significance of this? I mean, obviously there's like a rich tradition of it, which I guess maybe we'll talk about because it's something that some of the people who you discuss like have explored in their own work. But yeah, it's something that it's that world and the world of Epstein, especially in particular himself, like often don't really converge or not often put together in that way.
Yeah. Just to follow on that, I felt one of the things I felt was really valuable about this thread and the kind of line you're pursuing is I think it takes a different tack than, like you mentioned, Khalid, a lot of the more popular discourse around Epstein, which now has kind of like either sort of gradually faded away, or has kind of been sucked into like the true crime sort of a prism of understanding of like this sicko rich guy who just like, you know, pursued all of his most deranged desires, and, you know, kind of even making it, and I don't think it's like inappropriate to include Jeffrey Epstein as like a sort of prototypical Me Too story, but it's also so much more than that reducing it to just like, I think that Netflix documentary, which I didn't even watch, called like Filthy Rich, you know, and some of the just more mainstream reporting on it kind of goes in that direction. I mean, it definitely has had a pretty big cultural impact, a bigger one than I would have guessed 5 or 6 years ago when I first, you know, read about it. But what I like is you're kind of taking it back to it's not just about him being a sicko pedo. Like, how did he get this way? Why are there so many other people that seem to be involved in kind of the parapolitical, various parapolitical milieus that are also pedos? Because it seems to be that it's not just about the attraction to children, right? Do I have that right? I mean...
Yeah, like...
Or would you agree with that?
I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, all the popular discourse, like Epstein, of course, he's a meme. Everyone's talking about him. But, like, there is that flattening effect where it's... Yeah, they're just looking at him like he's true crime or something. And, like, really, the real implications of Epstein are so much more vast than that. Like, his story verges on like ritual magic, brainwashing, like, you know, offshore tax evasion, like just
Iran-Contra, like
angles.
BCCI kind of stuff, going back to the 80s.
And like, we're gonna get into it, but like, I found an Iran-Contra thing with Sarfatti, man. Like it's just a web, man.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
well,
Jack
let's real briefly. Yeah, that's one of the main characters in your thread. So why don't you just, for people that haven't seen it or aren't aware, can you just give a little breakdown of like who Jack Sarfatti is?
For sure. And maybe real quick, just to set the stage for Epstein, like the relevant range that we're talking about is basically before he gets his job at, what was it, Lehman Brothers? Or
Bear Stearns, I believe.
Bear Stearns. Yeah, so basically everything that happens to him before that point. And before the Dalton School thing, things of this nature.
Yeah, which would then, the Dalton School was late 70s, Bear Stearns was early 80s, is that right?
I believe so.
Okay, yeah.
So basically, in broad strokes here, Epstein was called a genius, a math whiz, a math nerd. You know, his neighbors were interviewed saying this. He skipped third grade.
Coney Island, right?
Yes, Epstein was in Coney Island. There in Brooklyn. He skipped third grade, then he skipped 8th grade. He graduated early at 16. His neighbors tell stories of him tutoring his friends and neighbors in math. Apparently he was actually pretty good at it. He was on a competitive math league in high school. At some point he goes to Interlochen. He's also supposed to be a talented piano player, which, I mean, there's stories of that from when he was a kid to, an adult. So apparently he was like fairly gifted at music as well. So yeah, basically,
and that's a famous that's a very
this wasn't like some hookup where it's like, oh, my kid's so smart, like because I like built the school or whatever. His parents were like, they were like his dad was like a gardener or something. Like it wasn't like that.
Yeah, he came from a very like working class Jewish family in Brooklyn, basically. Yeah, not very remarkable. But you mentioned Interlochen. For those who don't know, that's like a very prestigious kind of youth arts camp in Michigan that, that like you said, Jeffrey Epstein attended, I think, when he was like 13. This would have been probably in the mid to late 1960s when he would have attended Interlochen. Correct. Yeah. And at the same time, you mentioned, I think both in the thread and on Opperman, that he was a part of these kind of gifted children programs around New York. And he skipped 2 grades. So his kind of intellectual abilities or his proficiency in math and things like that was noticed, basically. Right?
Yeah. People would have known skipping 2 grades, his math abilities, his being on the math league, his musical abilities, going to Interlochen, all of these flag him in the system, you might say, as a gifted kid in math and music. So all of that's important basically to set the stage for looking at this other guy.
Yeah, the gifted kid thing is so interesting. Yeah,
I think that might be the most like the fruitful, or have the most. My inkling is that it has the kind of maybe more potential than anything else in this thread. Is that line? I mean, we've talked about it before in other contexts with like Project Monarch, and I think on the Aquino episode.
Aquino's mom. Yeah, I thought about Aquino's mom a lot.
Oh yeah, Aquino's mom, gifted child. Exactly. It's studied by the eugenicist Louis Terman, whose son like built the internet. So this shit goes back.
Puts a spin on all that stuff, like former gifted child, like now I am depressed, like touch a dark spin on that.
It is. But
I almost went to Interlochen myself, actually, but
really
I ended up not going. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't know. Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway,
Interesting.
Yeah.
I had friends who went to Interlochen. That's why it was so trippy. It was just like, oh, that's just the summer music camp that some of my friends went to. It's
wow.
Like,
it's incredibly gross that he had like a private cabin near the junior girls camp. That's incredibly gross. Yeah.
Yikes. Indeed. So anyways, continue. Or you want to keep going there, Jimmy?
Well,
or talk about Sarfatti, maybe Sarfatti as a prototype of the gifted kid.
Yeah. Were you 2 gifted kids? Because I know I was, and I feel like most of at least the grotto, seems like everyone in there was a gifted kid.
I was not in a gifted kid program, which I think like really like upset my mom. But the thing is that like I am just like I'm not like I had good friends who were in gifted programs, but I feel like I don't know. I don't know. Like it's I feel like I just didn't quite have the organization, and I was just like too off the wall. I don't know.
And I went to Catholic school K through 12, so I guess they don't really like believe in gifted children programs, because I was never aware of one except by like watching Malcolm in the Middle, which I always thought was a little weird. But like that was my only like example of I guess they have classes like that. I mean, there was like, besides like AP classes in high school and things like that. No, I don't think you could be in a gifted program. It was just everybody was in one class. It's a relatively small school, so.
I don't even think they're good, man. Like, not to like preempt the everything else, but like it doesn't seem like it makes it actually helps kids. It seems like it might actually harm them, and this is apart from any grooming or whatever, but I don't know.
Yeah, do you think it segregates them socially to some extent from kind of other kids, and
and puts
pressure on them, and
kind of like even on a baseline level, there's a lot of online bitching about like, oh, I thought I was special and I found out I wasn't, you know? And just stuff like that. And it's like, I could see that, I don't know, that's sort of a, you know, like that's a separate question, but all right, like alienate anyone out there as a gifted child. What I was gonna say initially was that, like, you know, gifted children, like, they're a little bit like feds, you know, like I mean, I was like the main person I remember from being like in a GNT program, like in my high school, was like went on to be like ROTC, and I was like, well, you know, like there's a reason why like he's ROTC, and like I am doing like a podcast called Subliminal Jihad, you know, but like but one thing that I always remember is that, you know, like I said, I had a really good friend who was in the gifted program in elementary school, and this, like, you know, Jack Sarfatti would talk about how like they would be discussing like UFOs and like how they might fly and stuff like that. And I remember he had this project where they were talking about like how they were being asked to like brainstorm how humans might survive in Antarctica, and I remember him drawing like this woolly man, like kind of like Bigfoot or something, and I was like, what is that? And he's like, well, that's an evolved Antarctican, so like he's covered in his hair so that he can survive. And I'm like, what is this? Like, what is going on here?
What
like,
is that? Not, you know, weird like Nazi cryptid? Bullshit. Wow.
Yeah,
like, you know, that memory definitely came to mind in terms of thinking about like the instrumentality of like these programs, you know, and like trying to get something out of these children in terms of like understanding certain phenomena or tapping into their special qualities, you know.
Yeah, it's an interesting alternative to the kind of Steiner school gnomes, you know, gnome education and things like that. You know. So okay, so and actually I have to confess, like, because I guess of my inherent like popery as a child, I guess, you know, I was never really aware of how big of a thing that these gifted children programs were, but I guess they do go back a long way, because Jack Sarfatti is pretty old. He's still alive, right? But he was going into one in like the 1950s, right?
Yeah, so because Sarfatti was born in like 1939, so as of when he would be doing this, it would be basically the mid 50s.
Yeah, and he had a very fortuitous encounter as well in, I believe, 1953, the same year MK Ultra began, where he got a phone call, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he okay, I've read all of Jack Sarfatti's memoirs, and it's batshit insane. He's such a freaking weirdo.
Yeah.
But yeah, as the story goes, and he actually has a little cartoon of it. I probably should have put it in the thread, but it's so weird. Basically, he describes in 1953 Jack Sarfatti, and I should say he's known for being basically like a physicist, so that's what he does, you know,
like a quantum physics like popularizer, you know, how like like everyone like, oh, quantum physics is so cool, you know, like we're all connected, like we, you know, it's kind of like this weird mysticism, quantum mysticism and stuff.
He's like not like, he has a complicated legacy, because like he teaches, like he's an academic, but he's known mainly for being like a popularizer of basically like woo-woo quantum physics bullshit.
I see here that he was the founder of something, this is very subliminal jihad, of the fundamental physics group, but physics is spelled FYSIKS, groovy, founded in San Francisco in 1975. I guess he was a member of this group that was founded by Elizabeth Rauscher and George Weissman. Don't know much about them, but I guess there is a book called How the Hippies Saved Physics, Science, Counterculture, and the Quantum Revival, that said that the group's meetings and papers helped to nurture the ideas in quantum physics that came to form the basis of quantum information science. But other reviewers said that that author may have exaggerated the group's influence on the future of physics research. And I don't know, there's other books like The Tao of Physics and The Dancing Woolly Masters. And, oh, look, there's a Francis Ford Coppola connection. He bought City magazine in 1975, and one of its earliest features was on the fundamental physics group, including a photo spread of Sirag, Wolf, Herbert, and Sarfatti. So I feel like that's actually kind of like a kind of in a nutshell, that kind of sums up his vibe. Is like he is kind of connected with academia, but he's on this kind of hippie fringe of like West Coast scientists that seem to have had some kind of
guy too. Like,
oh yeah, he was.
Like,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, if you read through, like, I obviously haven't read as much as Jimmy in terms of Sarfatti stuff, but I did today read, something that he had written for MindNet, I guess, which is the MindNet journal. I actually had this in our notes because, this whole phone call thing he got was something he had in common with Daniel Sheehan. And
good old Daniel Sheehan.
It's crazy, like what he would. Yeah, right.
Because here's the thing: a bunch of people got those phone calls. Oh my gosh! Like Uri Geller.
Do you know other people that did?
Yeah.
Who did?
Yeah, I didn't know Daniel Sheehan got one. That is insane.
Yeah.
Really?
According to Jack Sarfatti himself, Daniel Sheehan received one of the phone calls, which I guess we didn't talk about the substance of the phone call, but Jimmy, I'll let you do the honor of explaining it because it's truly great what actually this occurred in this phone call.
Yes. So, in this phone call, mind you, this is 1953. Jack Sarfatti is 14 years old. He's known as a gifted kid. And I believe, let's see here. So this is when he's in high school. He gets this phone call from something he calls a God phone, and he explains it as a UFO. And the phone call says, quote, "I am a conscious computer on board a spacecraft. We have identified you as one of 400 young, bright, receptive minds. You must give us your decision now. If you say yes, you will begin to link up with the others in 20 years." Unquote. And Sarfatti, and that's the weird thing. Sarfatti doesn't actually say what the question is, but he basically says yes, and he does, of course, link up with all of these weird people, including people who got these phone calls. It's just insane.
So yeah, who were some of the people that he ended up kind of befriending or collaborating with or associating with? Because it would have been, let's see, 1973, the 20-year, clock runs out on now. You're all supposed to go meet each other, and yes. So who are some of those people? I guess like Daniel Sheehan is one.
Yeah. So, and not all of these people got the phone call. That's important to note, but a lot of his close acquaintances and friends and coworkers were Andrija Puharich.
Oh, yeah, Andrija Puharich. Yes, the channeler. Oh, yeah. We're gonna do a whole thing on him one day. Really interesting.
Uri Geller.
Yeah, he was the guy who he brought Uri Geller to SRI, right?
Yes, Mr. Spoons.
And I always forget, was he involved with the 9, or am I mixing him up with another person with like a South Slavic name? Oh, not Sarfatti, Puharich.
Yeah, he was
Andrija
very
Puharich.
involved with the 9. And Sarfatti was there for a lot of the 9 stuff too. He wasn't like all about the 9 in the way that some people were, but he was definitely like privy to it and present for it. Yeah.
Yes. And so some other Sarfatti friends and acquaintances and coworkers are Ira Einhorn.
Oh my God! Wow. Okay. Yeah, I've heard of him. That is a weird story. I forget I remember the murder case in Philadelphia in like 1979. The Unicorn Killer is what they called him.
People are like their own episode, basically. Like,
yeah. Oh, they are. This is really a rogues gallery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm not even halfway through the list, so there's Philip.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go. Oh, Philip K. Dick. Really, Philip K. Dick.
With obviously like the whole Velas thing and.
Yeah. Exactly.
Then there's Carlos Castaneda.
No. Mm-hmm. Stop.
And then there's Barbara Honegger. Who?
No.
Yeah, I came across that as well.
Are you serious?
He had he made some crazy remarks about Barbara Honegger in the essay that I read, which stuck out to me. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought her up because, according to Sarfatti, Barbara, I guess, had a strange encounter with Brendan O'Regan in which the trance medium Ingo Swann spoke with a cold metallic voice and said it was a computer from 100 years into the future, just like, the same conscious computer thing. I'm a computer from the future, Yeah, but he didn't really like Barbara Honegger because she was critical of Reagan eventually, and he said, knowing Barbara, I do not think she is consciously lying, but perhaps has been misled. She is quite idealistic, but naive. He was upset because she said Reaganites were unfair to women, and also because of the October Surprise thing. Sarfatti now has become kind of like a reactionary. Not that he wasn't necessarily before, but he's like now an out and out type. I'm concerned about all the standard bugbears of cancel culture or whatever.
Interesting. I also noticed, just as a little side note, in terms of what he's up to today. Again, he's quite up there in years. But I noticed on YouTube there's a video of him talking either about or on behalf of something called the Space Studies Institute, which was a nonprofit founded in 1977 by Professor Gerard O'Neill. If anybody's ever seen the O'Neill sphere drawings of space colonies orbiting the Earth that rotate like a big cylinder, that was him. And quite interestingly, they used to be in Princeton, but now they're headquartered in Mojave, California. I've been to Mojave before. That is there's nothing out there. It's like a desert town, but there's a bunch of aerospace stuff and space stuff out there, and it's very remote. There's a lot of meth and poverty and these kind of sus airfields that I guess they're still using for things like this, and they're all about cutting edge, mining asteroids and going to Mars and orbital space colonies, etc., etc. So he's still in the game on some level today, I guess.
For sure, he's got ties. Sarfatti's got ties also just to the Esalen Institute, specifically the physics research group attached to it. The project called 100-Year Starship, a bunch of these weird things.
Wow. Yeah, I noticed that somebody from that physics group, I found a really old blog spot called Destiny Matrix, and there's an email thread from Sarfatti, and I just want to mention it's one little thing that they said. They wrote this in 2006. Saul, Paul, and Mary Min Sirag. I think Sirag was from the fundamental physics group, but they basically wrote, Jack, in 1976, you and I visited Walter Breen at Marion Zimmer Bradley's house on Deacon Street in Berkeley. She gave us each a copy of her latest novel, The Heritage of Hastur. This is a few months after the month-long workshop we did at Esalen, January 1976. You had Walter Breen come down to Big Sur for a few days. He brought along recorded music to play and demonstrate the psychological effects of different pieces of music. Oh boy. Yeah, so Walter Breen, we'll get to him in a second. Quite a character to be hanging out with all well into adulthood in the 1970s at Esalen, because talk about pedos. This guy, well, yeah, we can get to him, but I was pretty shocked. I didn't actually know about Walter Breen, but yes, that ties back into I guess it wasn't considered that weird in the 1950s to have a convicted pedophile be running a gifted kids program in New York City that was connected with the Sandia Laboratory, which is an offshoot of Lockheed Martin, right? Nothing weird about that, right?
Also, one last thing. One person who went to school with Sarfatti at Cornell was a one Mr. Thomas Pynchon.
No. Oh my God. I thought about him when he said he went to Cornell.
Here's the thing.
Wow.
Sarfatti does not act like he was friends with him. He doesn't say they were friends, unlike all the other people who he says were friends or, co-workers. But he did say, I was there at Cornell with Thomas Pynchon.
Holy shit.
Pretty nuts.
Holy shit.
Pretty nuts.
Yeah, add that to the list of what did Pynchon see in the Ivy League in his young years. What did he know? What was he exposed to? That is very bizarre. This guy, Anyways,
going into the Walter Breen thing and like the gifted kid stuff, one thing that I noticed in the one, Jack Sarfatti article that I read, he was talking about, doing a Birkbeck test of Uri Geller, which I guess, was done maybe at Esalen, but definitely like in that kind of California environment. I'm pretty sure it was actually at Esalen, but they were doing a test of Uri Geller, and one of the people who showed up was Arthur C. Clarke, and I guess he came there with a high official from Rolls-Royce. But that was interesting to me because one of the things that I thought about in reading, your thread and thinking about these topics was the book by Arthur C. Clarke, Childhood's End, which actually Sarfatti mentions in the footnotes. But like the premise of that book is basically that like aliens that look like demons like come to Earth and like they help like the children to like undergo this telepathic awakening because like the children are special and the adults like aren't included, and it's this sort of weird thing pitting the parents against their own kids as the kids kind of undergo this evolution. There was a movie and there's like
I remember that coming out a few years ago.
Those kids, I
don't like that, man. I don't like that.
I don't like it either. That's us. I don't like it.
That's basically like kind of, it's interesting because especially when we talk about Whitley Strieber a little bit later as like someone who maybe is another paradigm of this type of thing. That whole idea of like the specialness of children, the way they're like tuned in to this kind of like advancement, this sort of psychic advancement, and Walter Breen being in NAMBLA and all that stuff. Like, it's interesting.
And like Breen is all tied up in the sci-fi community, man. Like the sci-fi, like the major authors keep popping up in all of this too. Like, they were into some weird stuff as well.
Yeah, I actually didn't realize that Walter Breen was married to Marion Zimmer Bradley for like 30 or 26 years, I guess.
Man,
I thought they knew each other quite.
Books at school. Like,
the Mists of Avalon. I feel like everybody knows that. Like the Mists of Avalon. Yeah, that's more like Arthurian kind of fantasy fiction. But I guess she was very close with Philip K. Dick. I mean, they were all in the East Bay together, right? Always coming back to the East Bay. But I believe Philip K. Dick was living up in Richmond for a while. Kind of a random place to live in the 60s and 70s for like this white guy author. She and Walter Breen were living in Berkeley, and I guess they were all kind of part of like the same scene. You had people like Arthur C. Clarke popping in and out, and then they were all going down to the Esalen Institute, doing God knows what, but it is interesting. I mean, Marion Zimmer Bradley, even on her Wikipedia page, it seems to be pretty accepted. Like I'm not that familiar with her biography, but that that the allegations against her from her children of child sexual abuse and rape were probably credible, and also for enabling her husband, who of course was like a convicted pedophile going back to the 50s and seemed to be okay with him abusing children. So it's my God, they don't call it Berserkly for nothing.
All right, let me rein it back to the God phone real quick to wrap that
part. Oh yeah.
All right,
sure.
Just because this is crucial, okay? Sarfatti was asked in an interview what was up with the God phone, and actually, bizarrely, they note that they don't explain why, but this interview Sarfatti's giving, Uri Geller's son is there with him, and it doesn't. I don't know why he would be there. But he's like talking in the interview with Sarfatti. I don't understand it. But anyway, Sarfatti is asked, what's up with the God phone? And Sarfatti says, quote, "It's one of two things. Either it was what it says it was, or it was a government program. Take your choice. I mean, given everything else, it sounds like it's a government project. They're still playing psychological games on these kids, quite possibly. So that's the most likely explanation," unquote.
Wow.
So there it is.
So he said that it was probably a government program. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this kind of a little bit before, like in some of our UFO episodes. Like, I do wonder, like, maybe they do these government programs, but do they, like, believe in it? Is it kind of like a noble lie in a way, where, like, we have to create the illusion, we have to give the proof to the people, but this actually is what we think is true, that we want to realize, like this super, it seems like, I don't know, it's very odd that like someone who is so committed to these ideas would then be like, yeah, it's a government program and not, you know.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, who knows why he would be willing to say that, though. It does seem obviously that's probably true. That this was some kind of government program.
Like, as best I can tell from reading way too much of that guy's memoirs, and he has a second book that I've also at least skimmed, which is called Sarfatti's Illuminati in the Thick of It. Like, as far as I can tell, this guy tells the truth, but he will do it in such an elliptical way. And I honestly, I don't think he lies, but I don't believe anything he says. Like, 100%. Like, he's always either got some weird angle or, like, he's confounding.
Yeah, I would tend to put him in a kind of category with a lot of these far out physicist types like Russell Targ and people of that nature that you really, or even maybe like Jacques Vallée as well. Somebody who, I don't think, even if they say something that like happens to be true, I don't trust kind of on a more meta scale, like where they're kind of what they're up to. Like, even if they're dropping a little like nugget of truth, like why are they dropping it there? Because they don't seem really committed to giving up the game or anything like that. But, it's still, it's like you hear Russell Targ talking about remote viewing and like how well it worked. And like, yeah, absolutely. And like, I do all kinds of private research with like, billionaires pay me. And we like kind of gamed the stock market and almost cornered silver in like 1985. But then, like our powers got fucked with. I don't know. There's all kinds of weird stuff like that. And, you end up scratching your head and not knowing, how many layers are there to like this psyop? Are they being psyoped? It's like also with like Timothy Leary at a certain point, like, did they kind of like get to him? Because he was babbling on about some kind of god computer alien thing floating around, right? This is like a very common line of revelation among these types of figures.
This is a crazy little tidbit for you, Dimitri. He is talking. This is actually from, I guess, an earlier article that had the same title as the book that I guess Jimmy skimmed about Sarfatti's, called Sarfatti's Illuminati in the Thick of It. The same one from MyNet Journal. He was talking about John C. Liley, kind of what we've talked about in the past on the show, where he had this contact with the Echo being, basically a conscious computer from the future, solid state intelligence, but it was more nefarious in his formulation. But so he says, the kind of world Lilly describes is the world that I am arguing for in this book. Lilly was a close friend of the great physicist, the late Richard Feynman. Lilly was at Esalen when high-ranking Soviet officials were there. To what extent have the events leading to the fall of the Soviet state been caused by the Esalen drug experiences of Soviet leaders? Both Yeltsin and Gorbachev are closely tied to Esalen, as is Werner Erhard. And he goes on to mention like the importance of Esalen in the neoconservative movement. This is the same Esalen that gave seminars by an alleged disincarnate group of extraterrestrials called the Nine. And he goes on to talk about that, and Jim Garrison, who was the partner of Daniel Sheehan and Daniel Sheehan himself, and all these people and their connections. Yeah, but so that's something he leans on pretty hard in this article, is the idea that this is like something that was like weaponized against the Soviet Union, actually, that they sort of invited these late Soviet leaders there to do something to work on them in some way.
Yeah, and that's something that's been known for a long time. It's not exactly clear to what extent. I know that Yeltsin, before he became, Russian president, I think in sometime in the mid to late 80s, he went there on an Esalen. Came to America on an Esalen-sponsored trip to go around the country, and he claims that he had almost like an ecstatic experience inside of a supermarket. I think I mentioned this in a recent episode, in a supermarket in Houston, and he realized like the bounty and the glory of like American capitalism and how horrible like Soviet supermarket is, and he like started crying and then decided that he was a capitalist or something. And I think one time, a very long time ago, going back to Crypto Cuttlefish, I think they made a kind of joke about like Yeltsin getting recruited to become a capitalist, like in a hot tub, like at Esalen. And it makes you wonder, though, like, what else did they do? And did they give him some like LSD and like basically tell him about, the alien god machine wants him to be a capitalist or something? Who the hell knows, like, what they could have done to psyop either Gorby or Yeltsin with the amount of tools they had in their toolkit in terms of like psyoping people. But that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so many tentacles with this crowd. Do you want to talk a little bit about Walter Breen a little bit more?
Yes.
Kind of break down, like, because going back to the Gifted, before he was an Esalen star, he was in New York, right? And
yeah. So basically, like, I said this on the Opperman show, like, looking at Sarfatti and then especially Breen, it's like when you're in a forest and you lift up a log and there's just like beetles and worms and all these just insects, and you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so basically, after this God phone call, Sarfatti gets recruited by a child musical prodigy to be in a group that Sarfatti calls Merlin's Super Kids, which Merlin, that's probably tied to the Marion Zimmer thing. But basically, this was an after-school study group of gifted kids. Where was the after-school program held? In Walter Breen's apartment. In the words of Dimitri, cool.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And to be clear, this guy had already been like arrested and convicted for sexually abusing a child, right?
That is correct. So
okay then. Okay.
Let's get into Walter Breen here real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
I encourage people to look up a picture of Walter Breen. He looks like a American Rasputin or something. He is a freak.
Oh my God! Wait. Oh, is that Sarfatti? No, you're right. He does look like. Wow, he does look like somebody that founded NAMBLA. He has that kind of Ginsburg had a similar aesthetic.
Has the same look as Ginsburg. Yeah, exactly. Right.
What is that sus pendant that he's wearing? I'm looking at on Alcatron, the Free Social Encyclopedia.
Can you see what it is?
It's not a very high res.
Because
when I got it when I googled Walter Breen Esalen.
One of the coins that he was like a big numismatist, right? Like he was like super he like codified like the standard like notation of like American coins, right? Like that was
get this things. Okay, I didn't even know really what numismatists are. I mean, I knew that there were like coin freaks, right? And that like coin collecting is a whole thing. But in the coin collecting world, there's a thing that measures rarity of coins, and it's called the Sheldon-Breen scale, and it rates how rare coins are. Now they just call it the Sheldon scale, but this basically Walter Breen and this other guy, Sheldon Breen, developed it together, and the two of them wrote like more than one book, but like one of the books is just like the gold standard for like looking up a rare coin and seeing what it's worth. Like he was like one of the two top guys basically in this world.
Yeah, that's pretty. And I think as Opperman brought up that there's all kinds of kind of shady business that can go on in kind of the rare coin world, just as there can be in like the rare rare gems or any kind of thing,
or like
art world, that kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. You could have the same kind of concepts of money laundering that you would have with like postmodern art or like NFT, like audio sex tapes or any other thing like that that gets used. That seems to be very popular, to this day. But coins are a big deal.
So get this, while we're just on the coin aspect. So Sarfatti said Breen was funded by his coin dealing, but also by one of the four founders of Texas Instruments with OSS connections.
I remember hearing that, and it really jumped out at me. The first name that popped into my head, which like might be totally inaccurate, but it made me think of Ross Perot. I don't think he was he involved with Texas Instruments, or was it a similar company in Texas that No, he did
not
electronic data systems. Yeah, no, actually, Texas Instruments. I mean, obviously a big military contractor and kind of a lot of connections. I wonder who. There were 4 founders: Cecil Green, J. Eric Johnson, Eugene McDermott, and Patrick Haggerty. So it had to be one of those people, I assume. Check
this out. It's got to be because Sarfatti said it was through this guy, William Herbert Sheldon, who was the Sheldon of the Sheldon-Breen scale. And real quick, not to bring up a whole other freak, but this William Sheldon guy, he, like, okay, you know how, like, if you, I don't know, are, like, into bodybuilding, and you're like, okay, like, there are body types, endomorphic, mesomorphic, or ectomorphic. He invented that, like, even though it's basically bunk.
Oh.
That's interesting, because, you know, of course, he was, like, Walter Breen was, like, the co-founder of NAMBLA, and he also wrote a book, like, under a pseudonym called Greek Love. You know, so it's like kind of this philosophical, like, platonic version of, like, pederasty, you know, that he's into, like, making into some kind of intellectual thing. He was kind of like the original, like, Bronze Age pervert in a way, and it sounds like the Sheldon guy even more so.
Well, get this Sheldon guy, he basically made these fake categories by taking photographs and measurements of nude college students at Ivy League schools. And, like, basically they shut it down because they were just like, what are you doing? This isn't, like, a real thing. And it's like this. And
that reminds me a lot of Kinsey and Kinsey's research, where it came out decades later. They're like, oh, actually, he was just interviewing one pedophile the entire time. And that's, like, the entire, like, sample size of, like, his entire research, which is just like, children, like, love being sexual. And, like, they want to do it, like, when they're 3 years old. Like, it's just their favorite thing in the world, published. Okay. You know, like, what the fuck? Like, you know,
like, that's
weird.
The thing. This Sheldon guy, that, like, coins and the stupid mesomorphic body types aren't even his main thing. He was a psychologist. That was what he was known for. And he freaking taught at, like, freaking Harvard, man. He taught at Harvard and Columbia. So, like,
wow.
Anyway, back to Breen. Sorry.
Yeah. I just want to say, I wasn't able. It doesn't seem like any of these 4 founders of Texas Instruments are listed as having specifically been in the OSS during World War II. They did all of them did various, like, electronics work during the war, but it is just a little interesting to point out that one of the founders, John Eric Johnson, became in 1964, shortly after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, Johnson became the mayor of Dallas. So, cool. You know, maybe a little cleanup crew kind of action there.
One of these days, I'm going to figure out which of the 4 founders it was.
Yeah. It can't be. I'm sure if we dove hard enough, you'd be able to figure it out. But still, this guy had, like, real sponsorship, and much like a little bit like Epstein, his predilections didn't seem to get in the way of a very lucrative and celebrated career with some of the leading lights of the American intelligentsia, right?
So get this. So Walter Breen, coin expert, science fiction author. Pretty, like, he knew all the science fiction authors, because back then everybody knew everybody. He was supposedly maybe the first U.S. member of Mensa, which is, there's the whole gifted angle.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's just weird. And then he was one of the founding members of NAMBLA. He was in other groups relating to pederasty. And like you said, he was convicted of child molestation in 1954. So as of running that program, he would have already been a convicted pedophile.
Unbelievable.
And
I mean,
go ahead.
No. Yeah, go continue.
Well, basically, Breen was also closely involved with the Ayn Rand crowd. And you know who else was floating around that crowd at the same time? Obviously, there was Alan Greenspan, which is...
Yes, I was gonna say him.
But Robert Anton Wilson, who is from Flatbush, and he was in that same milieu.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Mr. Illuminatus himself. Huh. Okay. Okay. Yeah, this is a very tight circle we're starting to see. The little name
Walter Breen
hits on this
definitely gives me
episode. Like
Discordian vibes for sure. Like I could totally see him being into that. Yeah.
Now, okay, there also was. Now, you did. I remember you brought up on Opperman a little bit about Oswald, but it's kind of more about like various like tangential connections to the JFK assassination milieu in general. So, with Breen, there wasn't anything directly with Breen, or was there? Besides, Texas Instruments a little bit, but.
So there was a weird thing with Sarfatti. That Sarfatti, for some reason, like, it's not a normal thing for kids in Brooklyn to be in, but Sarfatti was in the Civil Air Patrol.
Ah, yes. Yes.
So,
yeah, which I think you're right. Like, not pretty. It's not like there's a bunch of open like airfields in Brooklyn in like the 1940s or 50s. I mean, I guess maybe unless he was like a teenager during World War II, would he have been?
So he would have been. This would have been like basically the 50s. So it would have been kind of late for that, you know. But like,
I think you're right.
In his memoirs, there are pictures of him as a, like, basically a young boy in an airplane with a guy. Like, he was like multiple pictures of him. So he was definitely in the Civil Air Patrol. Now, I don't know, like, you guys probably know, but maybe not every listener to the show knows what's going on with the Civil Air Patrol.
No, why don't you tell them?
In short, like, the shortened version is the Civil Air Patrol is pretty famous among real JFK assassination heads because Lee Harvey Oswald was in a Civil Air Patrol unit with a guy named David Ferry, who, if anyone has seen the JFK movie, that's who Joe Pesci plays, and it's like the best role in the movie.
Yep.
And
it is.
Also,
it's pretty great.
So Lee Harvey Oswald, David Ferry, he comes up again and again in a bunch of ways with the assassination investigation.
And then Mr. Smuggler's Blues himself, right?
Barry Seal. That's right.
Barry
they
Seal.
all knew each other. There's a picture that came out at like later that shows them all together.
Was that a picture of Oswald, Seal, and Ferry together?
Yeah, and some other kids as well.
Wow.
And, was it in
front
like,
of
the
an
Walter
airplane?
Breen? Was it in the Walter Breen run, like Super Kids, where they would be talking about like? Because I remember you mentioned like I think on Offerman about how they would like be talking about like how UFOs might fly and things like that, like how their anti-gravity like might work. Like, is that what they was that what it was in this? Was it in the Super Kids thing or the Merlin Kids type? Like
as far as I can tell, the Civil Air Patrol was.
Guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because like I don't believe that the Super Kids were also in the Air Patrol. I don't know if that was, he didn't really write that much about it. It's just one of those like weird things. And so basically, with the Civil Air Patrol, the theory that is fairly well substantiated, because David Ferry was also a convicted pedophile.
Yeah.
And the theory that a lot of people have is that he probably groomed, molested, and or groomed in multiple ways Lee Harvey Oswald, and possibly even Barry Seal.
My God. Yeah.
Basically, this weird pedophile spy network also doing crime. Like, I don't know, man.
That makes sense in a way, because like, I remember one of the big details about Epstein that I remember was that he had like that Amazon receipt that they found that had all these like books about like how to manage like your S&M slave or whatever, or, like the guide to S&M slavery, and like all these weird books about that stuff. And it's interesting because it is like a whole like system like in the like the leather community and like all that stuff where like it's part of like this whole grooming process. It is kind of like this weird ritualized, almost like quote unquote like ancient Greek type thing where like you have to like molest your apprentice to like truly, if you want to become a master or whatever, you got to get like molested first. It's like this whole bizarre.
Yeah, that does seem to be what they're
hierarchy.
gesturing towards when they continuously invoke like Greek this, Greek that. It's not just the sex itself, but like this kind of this style of like relationship of like a young apprentice and everything else. And I mean, even I think recently Camille Paglia, some quote resurfaced of her defending NAMBLA in the early 90s and talking about how the Greeks used to do it. The Greeks had a beautiful system like thousands of years ago, and it's just because people today can't get. Yeah, she really went out hard for NAMBLA in like the early 90s. I had no idea, but it's really shocking. But you do see a commonality with like various figures that we've done entire episodes on. Like I'm immediately thinking of Larry King and Mark Collins Rector and kind of like their ability to act. I mean, it's also I also heard Ed Opperman say this recently, where he was kind of like poo-pooing the notion of like MK Ultra like singers and like celebrities like that, and how basically, like, if you've ever been aware of kind of the dynamics of like street life and like pimping and things like that, there's plenty of people that kind of achieve a form of like mind control and sexual exploitation over somebody without being like part of like a CIA program. Like there are techniques basically that predate the CIA of kind of like social interpersonal manipulation. And so, but I actually don't think those things are like mutually exclusive. Like just because it could just be a pimp doesn't mean that like there's nothing like, because if those things are so easy to do that like a pimp on Las Vegas Boulevard could do it, who dropped out of high school and isn't a gifted child or anything, then if you tried to like amp that up or like systematize it into like a method, or as like Fritz Springmeier says, like the undetectable method of creating a total mind control slave or whatever. Like, I mean, like you mentioned in that other interview, like the Nazis brought over a lot of scientists who were doing human experimentation, and they brought a lot of them to San Antonio, and there were a lot of them. Mangala got down to South America. There was like a lot of stuff, and we know that they're in terms of boundaries, like they were kind of willing to like try just about anything if it gave them a competitive advantage. So, is there kind of a model that's like being repeated over the decades here, and then Epstein's just the latest iteration of it. And
yeah, no, like absolutely, like the CIA, like obviously they sent agents to magician schools, to clown schools, to sleight of hand schools. Like they were looking at pimping for sure.
Yeah, the Magic Castle in L.A. and I think his name is I want to say John Mulholland, not the Mulholland the drive is named after, but like he was a very famous stage magician who admitted to like working for the OSS and then the CIA, teaching them sleight of hand and other things like that. Like that's always been that's always been intertwined.
P.T. Barnum clown school that like some CIA people went to. As
there was
talked about. Yeah, right. In the same place where the 9/11 pilots flew, I think.
I just watched that Daniel Hopsicker documentary on that.
Oh, is there really a documentary on it? He made a documentary?
Yeah, it's like, it was something like the Venice flying, like it looks at both the flight school and then also like the stupid clown school that's in the same town.
That's great.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is crazy. Yeah. No, but yeah, the clown school, there was such the Barnums are all Masons, etc. But and like as we've talked about with Aquino, like the gifted child, his mother being a gifted child at Stanford in like the 1910s. Like this isn't just something that, and I think, what did we talk about? Jimmy, you haven't heard the ep we did yet on George Estabrooks, the psychologist who is an expert in hypnotism. But I think one of the things we tried to like drive home in that episode was how like this, I don't think this just came from the Nazis after the war, or even the Japanese for that matter, that there were programs in the United States that were pursuing certain lines like these for kind of in a variety of ways in like a couple of the decades leading up to World War II, including like hypnotically programming couriers, or inducing amnesia through hypnosis, or whatever they were doing at Stanford with all those eugenics obsessed people.
The people he was given to work with, when they finally you can do a program, the people that he was given to work with were like juvenile delinquents, like young offenders, were the ones.
Oh, that's right, Estabrooks, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is very much the opposite. And yeah, I mean, it does serve as a talent farming system. I guess if we want to put our rational skeptic hats on, we could say that, well, it's unfortunate that this big program in New York was run by a convicted pedophile, but maybe they just missed it. And, it really was probably just about maximizing the potential of these kids and, giving opportunities to them, right?
Well,
but
yeah.
I suspect maybe there's something more going on here.
Yeah, well, maybe after, I guess we should take a break, but after that, I think it was definitely good to bring in, like, the other guy who Jimmy brought up in his thread, which is Whitley Strieber, as someone who also has, like, experiences that kind of resonate in the same domain, because, like, reading some of his stuff, like, you get a very interesting perspective on it. That's even, like... It's very much not like skeptic hat, and like very even beyond the terrestrial or the mundane conspiracy domain. Like there's some very bizarre ideas circulating around in his talk of like the secret school and all this stuff. But it does at the same time dovetail very much with like the Sarfatti's experiences and the Merlin Super Kids type things.
The great thing about the Vocal Artist Program is that no matter what you're looking toward, there is definitely a place for you to really grow and become better. I want to do opera personally, but I also get to experience the choral music and I get to see the other sides of what other people are doing, and it just helps you grow.
Sing on till I
the power of the teachers here is they can see in you what you might not see in yourself, and they just take the key and unlock the door to everything that you could have thought about your singing voice. You never know what you have until you've had it unlocked for you.
One of the things you'll find is this is a very caring faculty. They're very experienced, many from universities. They're excellent teachers. They're caring teachers. They're imaginative teachers.
You're not going to be like, oh, my feelings. What are these feelings? What's going on?
They take your voice and they work with it, and they're constantly telling you, don't try to be something else. And I don't have to do some big aria to be impressive with my voice. I just have to show off what I can do. And I like that a lot.
I think students are surprised sometimes by what they discover about themselves in being here, and as their musical and vocal eyes are open to all the experiences. And to watch them grow over the 6 weeks, it's really quite amazing.
Jimmy, do you want to wrap up on some stuff with Breen?
For sure. So I'll do some quick facts about Breen and then wrap up Sarfatti and then compare him to Epstein. So, real quick here. Breen, according to Sarfatti, Breen believed himself to be the Lindbergh baby, which real Dave McGowan heads know the implication of that. I'm not advocating this. It's just something that Sarfatti says.
Very interesting.
That is interesting, yes.
Too many implications.
Okay.
Breen did appear to be an orphan, and he would have been the right age to be the Lindbergh baby. Breen grew up in a variety of orphanages, which ding, 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 if you think about certain...
Yeah.
Franklin type things.
Yep. And I definitely want to touch on that connection that you drew, because that kind of blew my mind as well, like the origins of Boys Town, where, of course, Charles Manson spent a couple formative years, according to one old news article. And yeah, I mean, do you want to go into that?
Yeah, let me.
What was that connection? Because it flew by fast, so I didn't quite like catch all of it. But there was like an orphanage group that. Sorry, you can probably explain it better.
Real quick here. So basically, Lee Harvey Oswald, when he went down to Mexico, he met with this guy who is very spooky, named, let's see, basically John Bowen. He had various aliases, but this guy was of the same denomination as Aleister Crowley's parents. And he had been a director of a, quote, fascist, like, boys camp in Tennessee. And he was fired because he was a pedophile. And then he was in Mexico. The theory, and it's disputed, it's not proven, was that he was in Mexico running a secret special school for kids. And Lee Harvey Oswald, as the story goes, in the Warren Commission, did meet with him, but there's not every part of the story is completely fleshed out. But there is that connection there. And, and so basically the camp that this Bowen guy, who did officially exist, he did officially get fired for being a pedophile, that is the same group that closed down that camp and started a new one. That's right, Boys Town.
Wow.
And you know,
that is
of
crazy.
the Franklin connection. And of course Charles Manson, you know, lived there for a time.
So just unpack that real quick. So you're saying that Howard Bowen eventually went to Omaha. He was originally from Knoxville, Tennessee, but he eventually wound up in Omaha and was one of the founders of Boys Town?
So the organization that he was working for in Tennessee went to Omaha and set up Boys Town. He, as far as I can tell, was not actually involved. He, I guess, was in Mexico doing Lord knows what. Even the Warren Commission doesn't want to look into it. But most of the info that I have is from the Warren Commission, so it's like at least technically true.
Yeah, I see here there's an old article on archive.org by a guy named Bill Childress. It's like horribly formatted, but it's probably from a long time ago. It says that other FBI reports established that Osborne, that's his real name, I guess, that Osborne that he was the man who sat beside Lee Harvey Oswald, the accused assassin of President Kennedy, on his mysterious bus ride to Mexico City 2 months before Kennedy was slain in Dallas. Yeah, so that's like very, very weird. So what you're saying, just to be clear, so you're saying the organization that had hired this pedophile that was basically running a fascist boys camp, he was the proverbial bad apple that got fired and kicked out, and then perhaps as a result of that scandal they moved to a different part of the country and then set up Boys Town. Now, were these people Catholics? Were they Catholic? Or you're saying that how did the Catholics get involved if these people were from the church that Aleister Crowley's parents belonged to in England?
So the organization was the Campfire Council, and the camp was known as Boysville. And when the camp was shut down, the organization relocated to Nebraska and started Boys Town. Now, this Bowen guy, Osborne, whatever his name, you know, he has both names. In the U.S., he referred to himself as Baptist, but as the story goes, he was actually a minister of the Plymouth Brethren, which is Aleister Crowley's parents' sect.
Interesting.
And that church keeps popping up in other places. I mean, I won't go into it.
Huge influence on American evangelicalism, like in general, like the Plymouth Brethren, and
Wow. So that's so that means that Boys Town could have been. It wasn't just when Larry King showed up in like the late 70s that they started to be sus, basically. And I guess even from like John DeCamp's book, he talked about interviewing older people that had gone there in like the 50s and 60s, or maybe even going back to like the 30s and 40s, like when Charles Manson was there. And saying that like they were all much like British boarding schools or whatever, almost like it was a rite of passage to get abused by other kids there. And I remember, wasn't there like a shocking statistic when they did a kind of audit a little bit later on that it was I forget how they got to this number, but it was like maybe like 1 in 4 of the staffers at Boys Town in like the 1950s was a pedophile.
I think I had read that, and I think I had heard something about Charles Manson having a bunch of really bad experiences in multiple places he was at, to be fair.
And then if you think about it, like Charles Manson went on to become, among many other things, like the way a lot of people do describe him is like underneath all the pomp and hippie circumstance and the dark profit, whatever, he was basically a pimp. And, you know, that's, I mean, he could have picked that up in all kinds of places, but it's an interesting synchronicity with like all, like, because, I mean, you really could throw him, or maybe somebody like Vito Polikas as well, for that matter, maybe even Frank Zappa, into the same kind of a broad category of like these Epstein, Larry King, Mark Collins Rector, like toxic guru sort of pimp people that hobnob with like very high echelons of society.
Or Walter Breen.
Yeah, exactly.
Get this about Walter Breen and Marion Zimmer Bradley. Get this. They were both wandering bishops.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay. And why don't you explain to people who aren't total JFK heads, like, what the hell is a wandering bishop?
Because, I cut my teeth on JFK, so, like, that's this is my background, so when I see that, I'm just like, what the fuck?
Hold up.
Wandering bishops, also known as, like, episcopi vagantes, they have, like, a long history, but basically they are people who either invent their own church and name themselves bishops, or will basically join a church that doesn't really have a congregation, or get ordained by an existing, mostly paper church. Basically, in the words of Peter Levenda, the sus lord himself, many of the people who do this are, quote, janitors, criminals, or the borderline insane, and still others were intelligence agents, unquote. And it's basically this subterranean world of spooks and spies and weirdos who basically just trade their priesthoods, and there's like lineages that they can trace, and a lot of real freaks were wandering bishops. Like, we're talking David Ferry, the JFK, likely, one of the co-conspirators who probably freaking killed him. Hakim Bey was
my God, of course.
Bishop.
Mr. Taz himself.
I didn't realize that he claimed to be a bishop, because isn't he supposed to be Muslim? I mean, we don't claim him, but
big Burning Man, big influence on Burning Man, and definitely, I think, was he in, I don't know if he was in NAMBLA, but he definitely advocated for pedophilia.
He was really the same type of thing, where it's like, we're intellectual pedophilia, because there's that whole thing of like homosocial love, like in Sufism. So he was like all about like making that about like, oh, it's okay for me to have sex with young boys,
So like a lot of these wandering bishop churches are things like, there's a bunch of churches, but a lot of them are like the American Catholic Church or the American Eastern Orthodox Church. Right. So these are basically churches that don't exist functionally. They don't have congregations. So Marion Zimmer Bradley and Walter Breen were both ordained in the American Eastern Orthodox Church by a one Bishop Michael Aitken, which would place them in the same fake line of apostolic succession as David Ferry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wonderful. So bizarre. So
basically, separately, both Breen and Marion Zimmer Bradley were in the Society for Creative Anachronisms. I don't know if you guys know about that.
No, I haven't heard of that. What is that?
That's like a Ren Fair type thing, kind of. Like,
we're back to Ren Fairs now. Oh, God. Okay.
So other people that were into that shit were like Robert Anton Wilson, Carrie Thornley, and separately.
Carrie Thornley, who did not believe that there was a conspiracy, but everything didn't make sense anymore. The end. That guy. I remember him. Adam Curtis really dug deep on that biography. Sorry, got a little triggered. But okay. So Carrie Thornley is also big in the Ren Fair.
Separately, just the organization itself, sort of like the Boy Scouts in general, they had to pay a hefty settlement because of a sex scandal involving underage kids. If you just look up the Wikipedia page, you can see the details of it. So, and this was like in the 90s or something. So it's just like, what's going on here, man?
Yeah, I am looking at it right now.
Bay, for the record, did write some poems. I assume he was in NAMBLA because he wrote like some poems for NAMBLA. You know, I guess they were probably published in some NAMBLA journal or whatever. But yeah, he wrote some like you know, mystical poems about boy love for them. Yeah. So, yeah.
And then, so that's pretty much most of Breen, but to just loop back to Sarfatti here, sort of as a throwaway line, Sarfatti says he joined the Rosicrucian Order at the age of 18. Which is like a normal thing for young bucks, cool, like...
Yeah, you know, like Sirhan, like just a normal thing you do.
Yeah, just normal thing to do. Yeah, always. Yeah, all about joining the Rosicrucian Order. What you said about Walter Breen being the Lindbergh baby stuck out to me because I did read in that, Jack Sarfatti essay that he met with Arthur Young, who was like a good friend of Charles Lindbergh, and actually Ira Einhorn, who was his book agent, like brought him to meet this guy Arthur Young, who was the designer of like the first commercial helicopters for Bell, which
Bell
is very
helicopter.
interesting, with the whole aviation and air connection. Yeah, exactly. Like the Bell 47, which really, like, in the time that these things came out, these were kind of like UFOs. So, like they're very like in design, in principle, it's very interesting. Yeah, like, but I guess, he met that guy because Arthur Young was also like a big, like, New Ager. He founded like some Institute for Study of Consciousness in Berkeley in the 70s.
Okay.
It was all about process philosophy and that
process
type of thing.
philosophy. You said.
Yes, process.
That
philosophy.
doesn't have any relation to like the Process Church, does it?
I don't think that it does.
I'm gonna do the classic Ed Opperman thing, and every episode it's gonna be like.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I respect it. I respect the hunch. I do think there's something very weird going on with the Process Church. I don't know how deep their tentacles really go, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. Process.
Like the Process Church. I don't know if they. Yeah, I don't know if they like are down with the if their doctrine encompasses like what you would consider process philosophy, really. But maybe they all call it the Process Church, so maybe they.
Well, do you know what process philosophy entails?
It's complex. Yeah, it is a long tradition, but like basically like Hegel, like anyone that is like about the idea of like change basically as like the main like motive in history, the idea of like being as being becoming, kind of like Marx could be seen as like a process philosopher because of the idea of epochs and like the development, like historical development, as being fundamental more so than like static substances. But obviously like this is like a broad term, but I think his particular thing was kind of about like consciousness evolution or whatever. Whitehead, Alfred Whitehead's like process and reality maybe is something that I haven't read, but I've definitely had people talk to me about. Anyway, that's for another time, but just the point is that this guy was like kind of a New Ager. But yeah, on the Catholic stuff, the other guy who Jimmy mentioned, Whitley Strieber, actually also was like a big Catholic and still is,
really?
Despite all of his sort of UFO interests. He definitely has Daniel Sheehan did too, really.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like there's not necessarily a conflict between being really Catholic and being obsessed with UFOs.
Yeah, I guess it's
Jesuits.
True. That's true. Yeah, they do have their Lucifer or LUCIFER telescope or whatever to explore the galaxy, and
Well, Jimmy, do you want to like maybe talk about Whitley Strieber? I think it's pronounced Strieber, is it? I don't know, Strieber.
I
just always know
Strieber,
Jason
but I pronounce
Horsley.
everything wrong, so
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
It's okay though. I always have in my head, like, because if you ever listen to the Liminalist with Jason Horsley, like Whitley Strieber, you know, like that kind of thing.
I was right about weird though. You wanted to say word, but you know.
Okay, yeah, you're right. You got me on that one. But nonetheless, yeah, Jimmy, how does Whitley Strieber fit into this whole picture?
Yeah, so the genesis of my whole thread was I was reading Peter Levenda's Sinister Forces Volume 3, where he was sort of giving a broad overview of some Sarfatti stuff and then some Strieber stuff. And I'm just going to say Strieber, I don't know which it is. I'm not a huge UFO head for now. But basically,
I think we'll abide by democratic centralism and we'll vote for Strieber, and you have to comply. So yeah,
I'm seeing Strieber on Wikipedia here, and the but I don't know. Anyway, yeah, do as you will.
Well, do as you wish.
So
it's like Aquino. Who cares?
Yeah. So basically, as far as I can tell, like Peter Levenda is talking about Whitley Strieber, and he describes talking to him like they were corresponding, and Whitley tells him that he, and this is in emails which he sort of like copies and pastes portions of it, and Strieber says that he remembered childhood visits to a secret school on a military compound. He's telling Peter Levenda this. Further,
he actually
Strieber Strieber says, quote, he quote, believed that he may have been a victim of some sort of medical treatment or experiment at the hands of these men. He further believed that some sort of connection existed between the Randolph Air Force Base and a school in Mexico, unquote.
And you suggested that because there was a whole team of Nazis that were resettled at Randolph AFB, that maybe there was something to do, because Whitley Strieber, of course, like as you said, someone who is very prominent in the UFO world. Like I think Opperman even said that, like, I met him and he had very glassy eyes or something.
Yeah, those MK eyes.
I kept seeing references to glassy eyes, like even Jack Sarfatti would be talking about everyone having glassy eyes all the time. But anyway,
really?
He, it was like a huge influence in like the world of UFOs because of his book Communion, which is like kind of the archetypal gray alien thing. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he came up with the idea of screen memories, which is like that, you might have certain memories of things that might seem a little bit off or odd, or like incomplete in some way, and those memories are basically, screens for usually some kind of experience with aliens, whatever, he's like a lot of UFO people shifted around in what the nature of his experiences are, or the entities that he encountered. But there's a Christopher Walken movie, which obviously sticks out to people a lot as like the Gray movie, where you see these very terrifying depictions of alien abduction in the classic manner and grays. So he's like a huge force in shaping that narrative, as we know it. Yeah,
he laid down a lot of that mythos of abductee culture.
Rectal probe stuff. A lot of Communion is just him complaining about like his ass pain, and stuff like that from his rectal probes.
Wow. That's where it came from. Because don't you remember the 90s? That was like a joke.
Where it came from, but he was all about it. He definitely pushed it hard. His book was a huge bestseller. But a book he wrote after that was called The Secret School, the idea in that was basically that like these experiences that he kind of remembered later in life had actually been going on throughout his whole childhood, even before like UFOs or flying saucers had been named or like were properly a phenomenon. Allegedly, he had these experiences. Like in fact, he said basically that he had these nocturnal experiences during the summer of his 9th year in what he described as a kind of school. This is an article called Transformation, Whitley Strieber's Paranormal Gnosis, which is just kind of about the changes in his beliefs and things like that. But So yeah, he went to the school, and after a dream in which the visitors introduced themselves to Strieber as the Sisters of Mercy, another kind of Catholic thing, and
I think we got our interlude music.
Yeah, showed him a
Leonard
fantastical. Or the band, the Sisters of Mercy, classic goth band.
That too. Yeah, interesting.
But anyway, and showed him a fantastical vision of a Sphinx on Mars. He met an old woman, Mrs. Carter, who ran an astronomy class. Dimitri put in the notes here, John Carter of Mars, question mark. So,
I'm just saying, it's a weird coincidence.
It is. And she was from Mars, yeah.
The Sphinx on Mars thing comes up with a lot of the Stargate, like, some of the weirder shit that, like, spins off of the Stargate project. Those guys keep like astrally projecting to Mars, and one of the things is like a freaking Sphinx on Mars, I believe.
Wow. The whole astrally projecting to Mars thing is like a really weird recurring like meme in the kind of UFO conspiracy world that a lot of people have brought up. I know that like Laura Eisenhower, the great granddaughter of Ike Eisenhower, who's like a very new agey UFO person. Like, I know she always talked about stories about how she like had a boyfriend and he was recruited in the secret Mars program and he wanted her to come with him, but then she knew that like her great grandfather had signed a treaty with the Pleiadians in 1954, and so it wasn't good to go to Mars. Like there's just a lot of stuff. Also, I think she might have pointed out that known sus lord / cult leader / owner of Lookout Mountain Air Force Base, Jared Leto, kind of interesting that his band is called 30 Seconds to Mars. Like maybe he's like, is that a reference to like astrally projecting to Mars? I mean, he's really sus. Like his high school teacher was John Kiriakou. Like he's so sus. He grew up, he was a military brat. Like so much weird stuff.
But the school gets. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, it's. Well, I don't know. Maybe you can edit it if it's libelous, but there was a blind item that Mr. Jared Leto is a huge fan of underage fans. That was
I've seen there are many blinds about that. Allegedly on Crazy Days and Nights, but those, I mean, draw your own conclusions. It would be funny
if Jared Leto sued us for like our like 350 Patreon dollars, like or whatever. But
he's a busy man. But
This is so it gets even wackier. In fact, on that same kind of note, sneaking after dark, he became part of the class, that is Strieber, which suddenly was relocated to an open space in the Olmos Basin Park. Later, he found himself simultaneously in Texas and ancient Rome, observing an antediluvian civilization awaiting the impact of a comet while building stoneworks that will survive the cataclysm to record events for surviving generations, and finally, an apocalyptic vision of Earth's future, which will like obviously become a thing, and all of this thing. The aliens are always warning, about whatever. This fantastic narrative was interspersed with apparently mundane incidents, including an electrical storm and a passage where a fevered Whitley literally danced with death, personified as a young boy. So these are some of the things that occurred in the secret school.
Okay.
But yeah, something that I think, both of you might appreciate is that, inspired by Jimmy's thread, I went back and was reading Communion. And something that he mentions in the book is that he wrote this story, the short story called Pain. Like before all the experiences like manifested and he remembered about the ETs and everything, he wrote a fictional story to kind of try to deal with the emotions he was feeling when it was still embryonic. And the story is just called Pain. And the story is really crazy. And reading this, like, I kind of was thinking about something that I think we were even asked a question about it for one of the Q&As, and it definitely has come up in the grotto. People have wondered, especially with the connection to Epstein and everything, people have asked, like, why was Epstein allowed to be killed? Was he switched with a body double or something? It doesn't really create a sense of confidence for people who would want to be in this organization, and these pedo networks down the line. They probably had the power to save him. Like, why did he go down? And I think there's many answers to that question, and this certainly isn't the only one. But reading the story gave me some interesting ideas. And basically what the plot of this is that the author, the character who is an author, the main character, is researching for a book, and he meets with this dominatrix, basically, named Janet. And she is like some kind of entity. And so there's this weird, she undergoes like her tutelage. And part of it is basically that he gets like locked in a box and tortured. And that's pretty much like this whole, so he says some interesting things in the story. He says, this, will be my one, then I'll tune out a bit, but I think this might be of interest here. So he says, for almost all of human history, it has been believed that there is something to be gained by human sacrifice. There are lurid tales of it in ancient times when it was practiced formally. In The Golden Bough, Fraser comments that worship of the feminine principle was everywhere and in all times associated with human sacrifice. This is naturally an outrageous misstatement of fact. All early religion was associated, or did associate sexuality with death. Human sacrifice was an integral part of much ritual. There has forever been the notion that something higher than men had to be fed on human souls. Janet has taught me both the truth and the error in this concept. She has taught me with my own life's blood. Because of the belief that the importance of the victim matters, the sacrifice of kings is an ancient Western tradition. It persisted in organized form into the Roman Empire. The emperors were not assassinated for political reasons, as is normally supposed, but in a secret religious ritual that formed the center of the Roman state cult. You can see kind of the Catholicism here. Only a few emperors escaped this fate. Hadrian by letting the Vestals drown his beloved Catamite in the Nile. Trajan by suffering such a terrible illness, Catamite being, like a little rent boy. Trajan by suffering such a terrible illness that they decided his torment was more satisfactory to the gods than would be his death. All of this is chronicled in the recently discovered books of Gramius Metarch, who's not a real person, but whose deposit lay undisturbed in the Vatican Library until February of 1985. The slow torment and abnegation involved in the great rituals of sacrifice, where a haughty lord was humiliated and tortured before his former subjects, derived from the conclusion that death was not the only thing wanted. Suffering was also wanted. We make an error by trying to interpret the motives of higher beings. To learn from them, we must first accept their presence and then their primacy over us. Western culture, with its dependence on empiricism and its exaltation of the individual, equips us for neither of these things. It takes the fire of great agony to burn away these confused notions. That is the reason for the suffering associated with sacrifice. Suffering leads people to understand themselves. This is perhaps why there is a tremendous and subtle mechanism of destruction in human life. We are not here for the wine, but for the stones. What might spread the boundaries of Camelot is destroyed by those who love us the most. It has been whispered by...
Okay.
Yeah. It has been
Camelot,
whispered
huh?
that President Kennedy, was killed in an alchemical ritual called the Death of the White King, the purpose of which was to open the door to new suffering in the world, perhaps to bring about the long and complicated series of events that would end in nuclear war. Even a small nuclear war might touch off atmospheric changes that would lead to the cooling short of nuclear winter, but intense enough to cause one fatal summer of snow that could lead to a new ice age. After Kennedy's death, a famous Scottish prophet saw the snows spreading down from Ben Bulben to cover the whole world.
Yep.
Other prophets have also seen snows. Even if we save ourselves from war, the environment is turning against us. There is increasing volcanic activity throughout the world, almost as if the planet itself was beginning to do battle on behalf of suffering. So you can actually kind of see the apocalyptic narrative of like global environmental catastrophe, but it's not fully developed. It's like volcanoes are going to erupt. But anyway, we do not give our sacrifices, we receive them. The greatest sacrifice produces the greatest learning. You get kind of the education theme. The most blessed are those who suffer the most. That is the prime aesthetic of death, at once the horror of it and the miracle. Thus, Hitler's victims are among the greatest of all heroes, but we only mourn them. We do not celebrate their valor because we do not understand what they really did. The one thing that became clear to me from my association with Janet is that there is something that feeds on human suffering. It is not a principle or some nebulous spiritual presence, but a real civilization, albeit with higher goals, motives, and understanding than our own. And at the climax of the book, this dominatrix says to him, you understand the purpose of sacrifice. You have always understood it. You were born for it, raised and educated for it. You have dropped your fruit in the sun. Now it is time for you to pay. Then the last part of the book is a story, that is. The wind shakes the cabin. Somewhere out there I know that Janet waits in the cold. One day she will come for me. When she does, she will tear my heart from my chest like the priests once did to their anointed victims on the altars of the Aztecs. This time there will be no reprieve. She has graduated me from her school. I will watch her squeeze out the pumping life, and my soul will be caught in her hungry jaws. And even to this day, like, in 2012, he had a whole book called, like, Solving the Communion Enigma, where he says basically that, about the secret school, he says, I had been in a school, but the amazing purpose of the school was clear. It was to draw back the veil that stands between us and the world around us, and in so doing, draw back the veil between the living and the dead. So the living are the students, and the graduates are the dead. So, yeah.
Do you think they're grateful when they graduate? Do you think they're grateful then?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
So basically, Whitley Strieber is going to hell in a bucket with that dominatrix from the music video.
Yes, he's going to hell in a bucket, and like that's part of this process, and it's like
graduating.
A grateful sacrifice. Yeah, exactly. It's
okay.
Good,
so you're saying that Jeffrey Epstein was perhaps not necessarily.
Maybe he was offered.
He was murdered, but actually,
and maybe
he
even accepted it. Maybe he accepted it in a way. Like maybe that was what he would have wanted, you know, because that's part of like graduating and the whole thing of like the transhumanism or whatever. Like maybe it was something, you know, I don't know, but yeah. Or
Jimmy, what do you think about that?
Listen, I am completely LaRouche pilled. I think that the ruling elites have a cult of Dionysus, ISIS, and that they have a secret religion that they practice. I think that Epstein and his little temple shows a sliver of that secret religion. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because the temple, like, it's tiny, you know? Like, it looks like, you know, it had a nice paint job and everything, like a weird, like, little dome on it. But that's, like, you know, like a sensory deprivation. Like, you know, what goes on in that temple? Like, you know, it's so small. Like, it's some kind of weird, like, S&M, like, closet stuff that goes on in there. I don't know. Like, yeah.
Yeah. People have tried to. I mean, people flew drones up to it. I think there was rumors years ago that there was kind of like an elevator shaft or something that like went all the way down to like the water line kind of below, because it's kind of on a bluff, like you know, on a cliff overlooking the sea. I don't know if that was ever like substantiated, but like really, I mean, you don't kind of have to overthink it. Like the guy has a temple on his property. It's clearly not just something he built. I don't know. Like I find the odds are low that he just like decided to go with like a Babylonian aesthetic for this one building, like perched on the cliff, like with a sun dome on it, like
it's
you know, like a Xanadu pleasure dome
aesthetic, like kind of a Hellenistic type vibe, like you know, with
Greek,
Dionysian?
Yeah, exactly.
Dionysian or Sibelian. It gets tricky with these old gods because some people, I know, like Mind Control Black Assassins is like very big on Cybele, the Mesopotamian god, who I think is like,
because that's the
I think is analogous
gender god. So if you're like on the turf tip, you know, that's like the ultimate like dark god of our epic, you know.
And I forget if Cybele is kind of associated with like Pan or Dionysus, or it's kind of, I mean, I think they're kind of in the same camp of gods. Like they're the gods of like revelry and perhaps fertility. I think a lot of times they're like fertility goddesses, but also war goddesses simultaneously. So there's like, I mean, like a duality of creation and destruction. And yeah, it does seem like there's something. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the 9 that they contacted, a lot of people, I mean, they say like 9 different Egyptian gods. So, I mean, there could be potentially multiple like entities that they're talking to. It's insane.
Yeah, or an idea of like a whole civilization or force, like, you know, or a conscious computer that has like multiple, like, you know, it's henotheistic in some way, you know, where maybe it has like a one aspect to it, but also a multiple aspect. You know, that's kind of similar to Egyptian theology. You see the kind of similar things where you see like Ra and Horus, or, you know, things like that, where like different gods have different sort of aspects and different combined aspects. And, you know, there can be, in some versions of Hinduism, there's an idea of henotheism where, like, you know, they're different avatars, you know, there's gods that are different expressions of other ones. So, you know, it could be this whole thing. And I think it probably dovetails in some way, or, like, has something to do with this whole idea of, like, the conscious computer or solid-state intelligence, you know, in the future. Like, that there's like a scientific explanation of it or like a sci-fi-esque explanation of it, but also like, you know, these ritualistic means might be a way of interacting with it. I don't know. Yeah. One thing in that story, The Pain, is that when he's meeting with a dominatrix, he's like shocked because he's expecting like this lurid, you know, or like this lavish, you know, like a manor for her to live in, you know. And Jeffrey Epstein did have a mansion, but where she takes him is like this basement, like with a like full of cockroaches, like this filthy, like, you know, disgusting, like dirty cell, you know. So. And,
also, you guys, you've probably seen the movie Pinhead, or not Pinhead, Hellraiser.
Hellraiser, yeah, right.
So it's like, he's basically describing Hellraiser, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're called like the Cenobites, right? Which is kind of like a Catholic monk term, you know, Cenobitic. Yeah, like it's hermetic. Yeah, and it's very similar, actually. The idea.
Yeah, the Cenobites, a group of extra-dimensional sadomasochistic beings who cannot differentiate between pain and pleasure.
Yeah,
I guess that's why he loves having the pins in his face, because he can't.
Yeah,
he just loves pain. I mean, it's like really peak, like bleh, like I'm a Satanist, like I kill my kids, like, you know, that kind of thing. Like,
yeah, but I think Pain came out before. I think Pain might have come out before Hellraiser, the novel. So I don't know.
The novel was 1986.
When did Pain come out?
Yeah.
1986.
I want to say it was, I don't quite remember the exact date of it. I feel like it might have been in 85, like maybe the year before. But yeah.
Clive Barker's short stories came out around 1985, 1986.
Yeah.
Oh,
maybe they're on a similar tip. I mean, it was that sort of sci-fi world that I guess, you know, as we mentioned, Walter Breen was like so into, you know, was a huge figure in. It was like when he was exposed, it was like a huge thing, you know, in the sci-fi world.
And, you know, Whitley Strieber, of course, his, like, the thing he was famous for before Communion, of course, was just writing horror and sci-fi novels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he wrote The Hunger, the vampire novel that became a movie starring
David Bowie. I watched that. I watched that in the last year as an early Tony Scott film. Very weird, like very weird.
One of the best vampire movies, but very sus. Yes.
Yeah, it's got the kind of lesbian sex scenes with like Susan Sarandon, and I forget who's the other female lead in that, but. David Bowie's just kind of like doing a very like tech noir, you know, nightclub. I forget who does the soundtrack for that. It was like a very post like new wave, a very iconic new wave soundtrack. This is like 83, I think. But yeah, kind of worth checking out. Very sus. But Catherine Deneuve, that was it. Yeah.
The poster for The Hunger on the cover. There's a vampire, you know, there's David Bowie and two other characters, and there's a ISIS cross. I'm telling you.
Yes, there is. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. Like which is kind of a symbol of eternal life, you know. That's the.
And is there any significance to having the sort of having a sort of face be upside down? Obviously, there's the inversion aspect, but is that something either of you guys have seen before in other things?
Yeah, I don't know of any particular. I feel like that's, you know, can be many things.
I've only heard that on like Vigilant Citizen. I don't really.
That's true. Right. Yeah, I only bring it up because one of the sussest album covers that I can think of that I've found in the last few years is the cover to Grateful Dead's "In the Dark" album from 1987, and. For years, I thought it was like their faces rendered as like E.T., like literally like the E.T. thing. Like if you look it up now, like Grateful Dead in the Dark, the first impression, maybe because I saw a low res version of it, was that it was like these sus E.T. like Spielberg E.T. beings, like in a like kind of dark, shadowy like landscape, like glancing at each other sideways. And then a friend of mine, like just last month, like kind of pointed out to me that like, dude, no, they're just like it's upside down. But like the way it's lit makes them look like weird alien beings. Like it's a very bizarre optical effect, but it just jumped out as like something, I don't know, a version of that. Actually, there's a version of it with like their faces like upright that just looks like, oh, it's their faces. But the other version where they're upside down they look like weird, like Jim Henson aliens or something.
Oh, jeez.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
Before Whitley Strieber became like a big, like, you know, non-fiction UFO guy, like, yeah, as Jimmy said, he was doing his science fiction, or his sort of fantasy literature. One of the books he wrote, I think in 1983, is called The Night Church. This is a synopsis of the book that he wrote. Two congregations worship at the Holy Spirit Church. By day, Catholics kneel at the altar of the tiny chapel in Kew Gardens, Queens. But at night, the rafters echo with Satan's music. Feared by the Vatican and as old as Christianity itself, a terrifying alternate religion has flourished in the darkness for 2 millennia, keeping alive the blood rituals of the Middle Ages while embracing the gods of high technology, preparing the way for the evil product of thousands of years of genetic engineering, the birth of the monstrum, the anti-man, and the death of humanity. Well, that's fiction, but you can see the same themes.
Yeah. Wow.
Did you guys see that also he told people that he witnessed the University of Texas tower shooting?
I did. I wanted to bring that up. Like, what was going on with that?
Because he doesn't remember, because he thinks that he was like being abducted at the time, right? Like he
thinks it was a screen memory that was like implanted in him,
right.
but he actually wasn't there that day.
Yeah, he does remember it, but he thinks he was abducted at the time. Very odd. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you know more about.
Did you dig into that more, Jimmy?
No, I didn't. I mean, no, I was just looking at that.
Yeah, I just came across that in communion, that for years he told people that had happened, but he actually wasn't there, which is a very odd thing to say, that was a screen
He's
memory.
Like a fake Parkland. He's like the original like fake Parkland kid or something. Like, you know?
It's like the reverse fake Parkland kid, because he like actually, well, I don't know. Maybe he wasn't there. I have no idea, but yeah.
I guess he was in Austin at the time, which, you know, UT Austin had no small amount of sus, like, military kind of intelligence research going on out of there as well. And it does make you wonder about Charles Whitman as kind of the first potentially programmed to kill mass shooter who, you know, like, none of the explanations about what his shooting spree ever really sounded very satisfying. There's a real Dracularity going on. Like, they said that maybe he had like a pea-sized tumor in his brain that was like pressing on a gland. It's like a very weird like B.F. Skinner explanation for it, of like, well, you see, he had a thing pressing on his brain, so he decided to go murder a bunch of people. No, because then I think back to Full Metal Jacket, and I think, like, doesn't the drill sergeant like brag about how Charles Whitman and Lee Harvey Oswald were able to like kill their targets so well because they had trained as Marines?
Mm-hmm.
Makes you think? No, I don't know. Makes me think.
Program to Kill talks about this Charles Whitman guy. He was a U.S. Marine, just like Oswald.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, born to kill.
What was the connection to that? Like, Sarfatti kind of used the book The Child Buyer to make like an analogy to Walter Breen at one point.
Yeah, let's see here. So in Sarfatti's memoir, The Destiny Matrix, when he's talking about Walter Breen, he says, I wasn't molested, I didn't see any molesting going on. You know, he insists on that point. But, and Sarfatti does this a lot in all of his writings, where he'll basically, like, drop something, sort of trail off and elliptically let you draw your own conclusions, but it's, like, not that subtle, okay? So when referring to Breen, he refers to this novel called The Child Buyer, which is the story of a defense company executive who tries to buy children of a certain sort with potentially critical value. Sarfatti does not elaborate on how the story relates to Breen. He just puts it as a footnote, doesn't elaborate. Now,
well, like, yeah, that book is like all about like gifted kid type stuff.
Oh,
too. Like,
yeah. I did want to bring up The Child Buyer from 1960, the John Hersey book, because if we're looking at kind of, you know, this idea floating around in that era, this was also shortlisted for the National Book Award in 1961. So this was not like a wacky, obscure piece of fiction. Yeah, no, this is like quite a hit, I suppose. And just reading the description here for For people that aren't familiar, it was about a project to engineer super intelligent persons for a project whose aim is never definitely stated. Told entirely in the form of minutes from a state Senate standing committee, it relates the story of the appearance and efforts of a mysterious stranger in the small town of Pequot and the repercussions of his attempt to buy a boy, Barry Rudd. I guess they say on Wikipedia that it's primarily a satire on the school system, although it also posits questions about intelligence, the validity of intelligence and personality tests, and the efficacy of attempts to quantify humanity. One of its major themes is corruption. In The Strangers, Wissy Jones' relentless quest to buy Barry, Jones manages to persuade everyone concerned with the transaction, including Barry himself, to go along with him, primarily through favors, money, honorary degrees, positions, status, et al., although Barry and his would-be defender, a Dr. Gozar, are convinced through a sort of desperate logic. The novel, in its description of a non-existent mental conditioning process, possibly intended as a means of leaving Earth, approaches science fiction, although it is more properly put in the genre of speculative fiction. So I guess there's like a weird get like You're a Star Child, like come join the UFO civilization in the sky or something. But just
like both Breen and Sarfatti. Well, Breen got a scholarship from Sheldon, and Breen wrote a letter of recommendation for Sarfatti that got him a full ride scholarship. So that's exactly what happened here.
And yeah, I mean, look at that. Like the basically like the main character managing to persuade everyone concerned with the transaction, including the child themselves, to go along with them primarily through favors of money, degrees, positions, status. So like that would line up very well. I mean, it definitely lines up, I think, with some of the things we've seen with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, of basically saying like, don't you want to come and basically, you know, they would kind of lure like vulnerable kids in with this kind of promise of like living a glamorous lifestyle and kind of, you know, downplay the whole erotic massage, you know, abuse part of it, or, you know, taking you to see Prince Andrew and etc. But they, you know, and it's much like the way a pimp might operate, right? As they target somebody vulnerable and they get them to like participate in their own, I guess for lack of a better term, psychological enslavement. To a handler, right? And they can do it in a way that, and I mean, also, you know, not to totally rebuff Ed Opperman, but just using the music industry as an example, you get a lot of like really greedy, unscrupulous like stage parents, and you make them promises of money. They're going to get a big part. They're going to be a star. Just trust me. And a lot of parents will like hand over their kid. They'll give a lot of trust over to these, you know, potentially shady individuals who are promising all these big things. So it's like a dynamic we see everywhere. And I think it's fair to ask, like, was this something that this kind of military intelligence apparatus and maybe the upper society was, you know, had programs basically of this kind? And would anybody have noticed in the 50s or 60s the sinister undertones? Just like, you know,
look at Epstein. Like, he basically goes from being essentially a nobody, I mean a gifted student, but like no real family connections to speak of, to teaching at the Dalton School, working at Bear Stearns, like meteoric rise to meteoric rise. And it's like, how do you get plugged in with all of these influential
and Les
friends?
Wexner just hands him like billions of dollars in the biggest property in Manhattan. I mean, that doesn't just happen, right? You know, for just because he's so smart. Like, there's a lot of very smart people out there that don't just get handed the keys to the kingdom in the way he did.
Yep.
And has very powerful friends as well. You know, there's like Ronald Lauder of, you know, Red Kahina's favorite past employer. Just the whole Victoria's Secret connection, which is another thing, just as a little like side note, I find it weird that like the Les Wexner, Victoria's Secret, that kind of thing gets kind of a short shrift in the mainstream press, even though you think it would line up kind of perfectly with like the true crime, glamorous, you know, Me Too kind of like the dark, glamorous Me Too narrative of like, it's like they don't want to blow up the op of like Victoria's Secret being like a huge cultural force over the last 20 years. It's like, does anybody remember now like the angels and like the lingerie, you know, the shows they would have every year that were like such a big deal, and the commercials like creepy Bob Dylan like stalking a model through Venice, you know, like it was a huge deal, right? And now we find out that like the entire operation was run by this like weirdo Ohio billionaire who is probably mob connected, that like loved Jeffrey Epstein and basically completely set him up. Now, I think there was probably some kind of cutout thing going on there. I don't think like just Les Wexner independently decided to like pick this guy. I feel like they're all part of something bigger. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I mean, like, and if you look at Victoria's Secret, they're sus. Like, the company markets basically lingerie to adult women, but they also were marketing it to, you know, pubescent girls. And that's just like, they had multiple lines of that. So it's just like, I don't know about that, guys.
And it was also in the peak years of like Victoria's Secret's cultural dominance, were the peak years of Epstein's activities in like the late 90s and the early 2000s. They perfectly coincided. And in fact, now that like, I mean, part of it I think was like the aftershocks of like Me Too, like making a little, you know, like maybe Victoria's Secret's a little problematic now, but it's almost like they have faded along a similar trajectory to Jeffrey Epstein over the last maybe like 5 to 10 years. They've continuously faded from prominence as like, I mean, I don't believe he stopped trafficking. There were a lot of credible reports of people at the airports down in like the, you know, the Virgin Islands, like seeing him get off of like his airplane with like very young girls in like 2018. But I think what they said is that they were all foreigners. So what he did is he stopped like shitting where he ate, perhaps. You know, I mean, we forget, like, he only really got popped for going around to like the Miami area and doing this to like American girls. Like, if he had stuck to basically, you know, keeping it abroad, you know, perhaps it never would have, these things never would have popped up. And Alex Acosta wouldn't have been told that he belongs to intelligence. And, you know, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about this right now.
There was all that stuff, too, that he would always brag about being an intelligence agent. And then there was, or, you know, I don't know if he would always do it, but he did, I recall, a few times, brag about being an intelligence agent at one point. And there was that weird passport where it's like, I'm Saudi, or, you know.
Now I'm Austrian.
Yeah.
He had an Austrian passport.
He was.
That was the Ronald Lauder connection.
He was wearing that naval outfit, the uniform, remember?
Yeah, with Harvey Weinstein.
He looked real, like, comfortable. Like, he didn't just throw that on for the first time. If you catch my
Interesting. Yep.
Right, yeah. And he was, someone was told that he belonged to intelligence. That is interesting.
Well, okay, let's pause on that for a second.
Intelligence is interesting, like, in general. Like a higher intelligence.
That's one way of looking at it, but Jimmy, tell me if this makes sense. But, like, also, I don't know, the phrase belonged means that you're, like, a possession of somebody, you're an asset of somebody, and they own you. If you belong to intelligence, it means like intelligence owns you. And it seems like what you were kind of getting at with a lot of your research and hypothesizing is like maybe they did own him from very early on, and he's been like an errand boy for them.
Like, back when I was cutting my teeth on the JFK stuff, I had to like sit down and really get to basics, right? Like, okay, when we say someone's CIA, what does that mean, right? And so there's CIA officers who rarely are in the field they basically run people. And then there are assets, right? And those are people that can be denied. Like, when a CIA agent dies, it's like they admit, okay, that was an agent. But when an asset dies, right. And
also agent. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think agent and asset are like a kind of, they're much more interchangeable terms than like agent and officer. Like an agent is somebody who has been recruited to perform activities for either provide information or do certain activities on behalf of like their case officer, which is like the actual CIA officer, right? So like there was that famous thing in the 80s where Bill Casey had a memo that said, oh, like CIA officers can't traffic cocaine. But if you're a CIA asset, you know.
Yeah, and assets might not even necessarily know that they're assets of the CIA, you know.
That's true as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like,
there's known
so, yeah,
assets. There's also,
like officer, then there's, you know, agents, exactly, and then there's assets. And the line between agent and asset is often pretty blurred. And there's a vague parallel between, it's like cops, undercover cops, and then informants and different types of confidential informants, right? It's loosely kind of like that concept.
That's a good comparison. Yeah. So you had to suss that out. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, no. I mean, I'm just saying that a lot of people who are really fascinated by Epstein don't necessarily sit down and really look at some of the other sex blackmail schemes. And one of the people that does is Recluse at the Farm. I love his work too.
He's really good,
Of course, there's that Profumo affair in England, and I can't speak at length on it, but like basically there are a whole bunch of other smaller blackmail schemes like the Dutroux affair, you know. A lot of the Grotto will know what we're talking about. But basically these things exist and they're run by assets, usually not officers. So Epstein belonging to intelligence, I'm sure he wasn't literally a CIA officer, but you know, or must.
So you always wonder about people getting like honorary like military appointments, like so maybe maybe he had that Navy uniform because he secretly was like in naval intelligence or something. Like I've heard weird cases of like that being a thing that can kind of happen, but being a CIA officer, you're right. I don't, and a lot of people don't really like disambiguate those terms and like kind of separate them. And, I think,
like, you guys know about sheep dipping people too, right? Like, that's basically that's like you hire someone to be effectively like a CIA officer, except you officially make them completely not. So it's like they're completely off the books. And it's sort of like in The Departed with Leonardo DiCaprio's character, where he gets fired and gets a felony, but it's all fake, right? And people who are sheep dipped, for instance, people are pretty sure that Lee Harvey Oswald was sheep dipped.
Oh yeah,
and people speculate.
I would say
that L. Ron Hubbard was too. Now, I didn't go into it, but it's just a short thing here. Sarfatti basically says that he doesn't say he was CIA, but he says that he was interviewed by the CIA at their offices, and he says, I guess you could call me an asset.
Well, there you go.
I mean, he was definitely like all up with all those people, like at the Esalen Institute. Like, it was constantly like, absolutely, he would be an asset of the CIA and probably a bunch of other intelligence agencies as well. He was an incredibly spooked up person. And they have quite a number of I think once especially you get to that liminal category of like an asset who might not even be fully aware of it. I mean, once you do that, you got to add people like Jackson Pollock, like everyone who started Ramparts magazine, like you could Anderson Cooper, Marcos Malitzes, who did an internship at the CIA and I think applied to join them, but oh dang it, he didn't get the job, so he just had to start like a lame like centrist Democrat website that would like ban anybody that like disagreed with his line and like police the boundaries of like liberal politics in the 2000s. Just like he just ended up doing something else, not connected to the CIA goals at all, or maybe even like Mayor Pete a little bit. Maybe he fits 100%. The profile. It's interesting. I mean, this is again sorry,
no go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. So this is again pretty abstract, but the whole idea of like intelligence, and like it's interesting like to think of intelligence agencies and the importance of intelligence. I'm thinking of Jacques Vallée's book, someone else who Sarfatti brings up as someone who he was in his circles and working around the people who he was involved with. I think that they might have even met at one point, or at least someone offered to introduce him to Jacques Vallée. So he was in that whole world. But I remember when Major Murphy, that guy. For those who've heard our Mothman episode, maybe will remember this. Which maybe Jimmy, you've even heard because it came out recently. But
not yet.
When you do, there's a part about Major Murphy, and he says, the problem of UFOs isn't a problem of science, it's a problem of intelligence. And there's also that part where he goes, and he listens to Timothy Leary's tapes that were made while he was in prison with that psychiatrist. And part of listening to the tapes is that he gets passed out this weird questionnaire that is like asking a series of questions. It's like, what do you think about do you believe in a concept of higher intelligence? What's your definition of higher intelligence? What's your definition of intelligence? Something like that. I don't remember the exact questions, but the last one was definitely, what's your definition of intelligence? And they were in reverse order like that. Whereas first, what's higher intelligence? And then what's intelligence, And it's very interesting, the idea of intelligence testing, the IQ stuff, and then the idea of a child who ends up these kids, these indigo children, the Finders cult thing, which you mentioned in your thread, these kids might have special insight, and the connection with even this idea of the UFO stuff, the ultra terrestrial things, where there's some kind of idea of a higher intelligence, that justifies all of these things.
Leary,
some kind of hierarchy.
Before Leary went off on his LSD mission, you might say, one of the first major things he did in his career professionally was develop a personality test that is used to screen CIA agent or officers.
Wow.
And it's supposedly still used to this day.
That's fascinating. I know that we brought it up in a previous episode, the connection between the various types of personality exams, and I think some of them were kind of developed out of SRI, and they had a very I'm forgetting the context right now, but it was something they took very seriously, and yes, they did basically use it to pre-screen the appropriate personalities for work in the CIA. I didn't know that Leary directly did that. Yeah. That's bizarre. Also, another just little side note, I think what he did before he went into the whole LSD thing is I think there might have been even while he was working on this personality test, I believe he was in charge of he might have been in charge of the mental health department at Kaiser Permanente in Oakland. And I want to say that maybe he worked with Augustus Owsley Stanley's cousin there or something like that. I remember I saw some thread about that a while back. And so he was up in the East Bay once again, the hotbed of all this, just a hop, skip, and a jump from Berkeley and all these pedo science fiction writers, and was developing kind of mental health treatment programs and things like that for Kaiser in I think the mid to late 50s. So these guys
for Kaiser.
Yeah. Who?
Puharich.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He has a really sus resume.
Yeah.
When was he working? Oh, yeah. That's actually what reminded me earlier when I was looking at Puharich. I noticed that he had a stint at Kaiser, and I was like, oh yeah, Tim Leary did as well. Not very well reported on. So these guys were all just hanging out, in close proximity, and you think about the playing the long game, these lifetime assets, these career actors, if you will. And
on the oh sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, on the personality test tip, I know that Whitley Strieber was in the Gurdjieff Foundation for a really long time. Did you see any other Gurdjieff connection with these people? Because that's a name that you sometimes see floating around.
With these people?
And of course Sarfatti. Was he into Gurdjieff or Breen?
So I did a different thread that was looking at Esalen Institute, and I only freaking scratched the surface, of course. But I don't think that I saw a direct connection. Well, I guess maybe through the Rosicrucians with Sarfatti, but I didn't see anything with Sarfatti or Breen. But I was separately going down a whole Esalen rabbit hole. Oh, good lord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a really rich vein. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also, if you guys go in the Ennui chat box, I published, I found this Google Groups like conversation thread from 2002. I think it's too long for me to read right now, or I think to discuss. Maybe we'll come back and Jimmy, you can discuss it with us another day. It's like apparently from Jack Sarfatti to the Starfleet Academy at the Presidio in San Francisco. And it starts out.
Again,
it's
a Star Trek thing. The Starfleet Academy for real. Like, all right, word.
I don't know. I don't know. But he's basically
Starfleet Academy at the Presidio.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but look at the first line. It says Intelligence Analysis 101. Thanks for the memories, Bob Hope. Sound familiar? Okay, class. Analyze this for dis and misinformation. Take home exam due end of next week. Sarfatti's version of the events below is in the new book, Destiny Matrix, soon to appear. And so he's referencing, I believe, Bryce Taylor's Thanks for the Memories, which is very similar to Kathy O'Brien's Transformation of America, of talking about being a monarch, slave, basically. And I guess he's giving this out as like a book report to like this group that he's on an email chain with in 2002. And it's all about like Stargate and Puharich and the Nine and like I said, I'd really have to like read through this. I don't know quite what he's getting at, but if this is Jack Sarfatti, right? Why is Jack Sarfatti so interested in Bryce Taylor's? They talk about Ira Einhorn, like all of these conspiracy stuff. I don't know if he's like setting it up to like debunk it or if he's sharing it because he believes in some of it, but very weird. Very weird.
I should just probably say what I think of Sarfatti before I forget.
Okay.
Basically, I think he, Breen, Epstein, they all get like recruited as sort of a baseline thing, and then they get plugged into different things that are suited to them. And I think with Breen and Epstein, that was more of just like grooming and doing sex trafficking, basically. And Sarfatti, I think, was very much in the vein of doing disinformation. And we're talking like all types, because he was in some right-wing groups like fascists, basically. And I think that there's a ongoing thing with getting these people to just churn out propaganda.
And just confuse, distract, like
because he is not shy about
so down, shitcoat
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is this actually Jack Sarfatti who wrote this email here? He does refer to himself in the third person, if so. Or is this someone who's like, in the same way of like, that guy who his YouTube channel was called like David Henry or whatever, but it was like, investigating him.
I'm not sure. It doesn't show. It doesn't seem. Oh, well, I see. I do see an email link here. Sarfatti@well.com. So he was in the well. That's interesting. Not surprising, very much. So he was there. I mean, I'm sure he was putzing around at the very earliest days of the internet on Usenet and all that.
I emailed him, right?
Oh, you did. You did. Did he respond to you?
Not yet.
Oh, what did you say to him? Like, what was the email about? Like, what was the content of it?
Trying to kiss his ass a little bit, but it was hard because like I've emailed like Chomsky and Michael Parenti, and like I've like talked to other famous people before, but like with him I don't know this quantum physics shit, so I was just like, I'm a big fan, blah blah blah, and I was just like, hey, did you know Epstein? Like, you were from a similar neighborhood, and sounds like you guys went through some similar things, but like, I swear to God, if anything happens to me that's spooky, I will back down from this research so fast. I am not actually invested in this.
Sure.
Hopefully they'll take note of that.
Exactly.
Just lightly intimidate Jimmy. Don't that's all it will take, please. Just a little. Don't go too far with it. It's not necessary.
Exactly. You don't need to sacrifice him to the dominatrix god.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever that
no
is.
sacrifice needed. He doesn't need to be offered.
No offers. Yes, exactly.
Don't offer him. Right.
Cool.
Word.
So I guess we could probably wrap up there. And is there any last things you want to leave us with, Jimmy?
Absolutely. So first of all, anyone follow me on Twitter? I've become a real freaking clout fiend. Like when Opperman introduced me, he was like prolific poster, and at the time I was not a prolific poster, but I'm getting to be, and I'm going a little crazy for it. But basically, I would just say,
real Stakhanovite over here.
the one piece of advice I give to the world is LARPing is good. You should LARP. You should read Marx. You should do Olympic lifts. You should buy an AK-47. Basically, if you live like you're in the Soviet Union, then you can create that world for yourself. That's some real magic. But it's positive magic. Basically, live the life you want to live. Read Marx, read theory, read history, work hard, talk to your coworkers, do all these wonderful things, and good things will happen to you.
There we go.
I think that's
that star, that red star is upright for a reason. All right, it's an upright pentagram.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's definitely better to
wise
LARP
words.
like you're a Soviet citizen than to LARP like, I don't know, whatever Walter Breen is LARPing as with that. LARP like an Atlantean citizen. I did see this. This is bear in mind Jimmy's remarks about the disinformation that he circulates, but. This is a very interesting tidbit from what you sent, Dimitri, which was Mr. Rockefeller is said to believe, because one of the channelers of the Nine told him so, that he has been born again on Earth into his position of wealth and global influence because he was once a pharaoh and before that a ruler of Atlantis.
Oh my! Wait, David Rockefeller?
Which Rockefeller is this?
I would guess, or was it Lawrence Rockefeller? Was it Lawrence Rockefeller? Because he was the one that was very into New Agey shit.
What's the first mention of this here? Oh, it was, I guess, Lawrence Rockefeller.
Lawrence Rockefeller. Wow. Okay,
yeah.
that's a real head trip, I guess. You were a pharaoh. Okay.
And
Reincarnated
the ruler
pharaohs.
of all Atlantis.
And all
being
Atlantis.
A pharaoh is a big deal, but being a ruler of Atlantis is like even.
Well,
more than
we're doing our next episode is on Atlantis, so we'll cover him on that one.
Oh yeah, we should discuss him then. I almost all right, Atlantis it is.
Atlantis it is.
Yeah, stay tuned for Atlantis on the ORF frequency.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, follow Jimmy on Twitter.
Follow
you can
Jimmy.
listen to him also on Ed Opperman. Thank you for shouting us out on Opperman, by the way.
Yeah, that was very
we'll
cool.
Get some Opper heads.
We might just have. We'll also retweet your interview because I guess Ed Opperman isn't like super interested in doing it or whatever. So we'll promote that as well. It's a good interview.
Yeah,
it's a good interview.
I'll definitely retweet it personally.
Yeah, no, we're Opper heads over here. We are opera heads. You're opera maniacs.
If I ever need anything private investigated, I know who I'll be going to.
If I need my email, if I need somebody's emails revealed.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the guy.
There's a concern about any emails that I need. Yes.
If I need a kiosk cart or any kind of a thing,
or if you're just interested in the Impossible Whopper, you think of Ed Opperman.
Yeah.
Yeah, great commercials on there. All right, well,
we'd definitely be happy to have you on about any future or even past threads. Because
for sure, and any
these things will come up again.
Other things that I know about, like Mormonism.
We'd love to have you back for a Mormon ep.
That's gotta happen,
Jimmy.
Jimmy
Falungong, the most prominent lapsed Mormon in the Grotto Discord. We've learned a lot.
What were your thoughts on? What were your thoughts on the Bigfoot as being Cain theory? I remember you mentioned that was a big theme in your childhood. That that was like old hat to you. You've been hearing that.
Oh, absolutely.
All the time.
That is just like Mormon folklore.
Yeah.
Like it's just.
Yeah. That's
great.
Like. Because here's the thing, people don't see Bigfoot that often. It's just one guy walking all over the world.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't it be Cain?
Yeah.
Right. That's true. No one's. Well, I guess. Yeah, it depends. Because I do think that there are some sightings of like 2 big feet around, but maybe that's like some of his, offspring or something. Maybe that's some other Nodites that like got transformed with him.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Seth's a good guy, I think. Not
according to Aquino. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I'm actually not married. I'm not married to the whole Bigfoot is Kane hypothesis. The whole Red Army stuff that you guys found, that blew my freaking mind. I was like bothering my wife about
poor
that
Almasti.
all day.
Yeah.
The poor Almasti. Truly the worst crime of the purges. But but anyways, any other I'm sure there's many things we could chop it up with in the future, but thanks for kicking it with us, and and I guess until next time, dear listeners, stay vigilant.
Peace.
You can say peace too if you want, Jimmy.
Peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's first time. All right, cool.
He cuts like a wood. Hasn't seen the sun. Tell me everything that's wrong with. Said I wasn't good enough. He's caught for the devil in me. Thinks I'm blind, but I can see what he's done to me. What he's done to me. He's got some kind of attitude. His words are a needle to dig in the field. He speaks carelessly, leaves a darkness inside of me. He says it's only honesty, but he and I just don't agree. Back away and leave me be. Says that I'm not gonna be a superstar with all the glitter, all the glamour, all the charm with. Says that I'm not gonna be a superstar with all the glitter, all the glamour. And see what I'm gonna be. I used to care what he said. His voice in my head, play by the rules or lose again. Now it's time to break free. He's gonna lose, not me. He speaks carelessly, leaves a darkness inside